According to media reports, Chancellor Friedrich Merz was reportedly willing to call a vote of confidence in the Bundestag.
But I don't have the authority to destroy the CDU.
In addition, Jens Spahn and Markus Söder feel left out of the decision-making process.
This Chancellor is now completely isolated and cut off, not just in the Bundestag, but also within his own party. And what that means for the Germans, you'll find out in this video. If you'd like to support this channel, I would really appreciate a like and a subscription. However, things are now starting to escalate in political Berlin. People are saying that they no longer have confidence in him, that it's better to have a horrible end than endless horror. Where the CDU is just short of the 20% threshold and the AfD is close to the 30% threshold, that's the topic of today's video.
I say to the SPD, there is no left-wing majority in Germany.
But left-wing policies are being made non-stop here in Germany. What you get from Friedrich Merz, what you get from this government, which is now so deeply divided, as many reports show, that everyone is only concerned with their own department and no one talks to each other anymore. Have we gotten socialism back in Germany? We have the left-wing majority because the CDU is completely aligned to the left. You can already see that for yourselves here.
Sugar tax, as I already mentioned, tobacco tax, plastic tax. You might vaguely remember that you once categorically ruled out tax increases. Let me show you another example.
Sugar tax. You rule out any tax increases, any kind of tax increases.
Ms. Zimmerman, we have a coalition agreement, and we discussed the issue of tax increases at length during the coalition negotiations. Markus Söder and I both said we wouldn't sign a coalition deal with tax hikes. Thank you.
I think we should leave it at that.
But with the others we discussed, it's clearly a tax increase.
They're consumption taxes.
This man is not only destroying his own country, he's also destroying the transatlantic alliance at the same time. Meanwhile, Mützenich spoke up again yesterday and made a very clear statement to Die Welt saying that we now have to start talking to Russia so that we can start disarming again. This man is only, and I can't even call him Chancellor anymore, only intent on completely ruining everything. With his lies, with his stories, with his absolute detachment from reality that he shows every day. Because while money is immediately available for foreign countries without batting an eye, people here in Germany have to pay even more taxes. And whether you call them consumption tax, income tax or sales tax, it doesn't matter at all. Tax increases are tax increases. And if you get a relief of 57 euros at the end, but at the same time you have to pay it back again with your next tobacco or beer purchase, then this relief is definitely not a relief. We can see that the sensitive voters, as he so nicely calls them, have now woken up. NRW minus 5 percentage points, the SPD in general minus 13, 18 percentage points which they can just lose. Olaf Scholz once said, this man can't do it, while Friedrich Merz hit back hard in the Bundestag saying that Olaf Scholz can't do it. By now, what we've seen one after another is that Olaf Scholz was better at it than Friedrich Merz, who, well, at the same time also picks a fight with the Americans.
I think it was a difficult week for his government spokesperson, so we really had some communication blunders, disasters, however you want to put it.
Yes, and the Chancellery will have to do a lot of explaining again starting today. Why did they, among other things, take shots at a woman with cancer, accuse her of lying, while the Chancellor quite obviously lied and took offense at the whole thing, yes, to use his own words. At the same time, you already heard it at the beginning in the clip, yes, when he says, yes, but usage taxes are not a tax increase. Now you have less money in your wallet. And why won't they express their trust in him anymore? He said that himself quite clearly on Mioska. Listen in for a moment, because this Chancellor is basically just politically dead. He can no longer govern. Even the CDU base is now denying him their trust.
Has everyone understood by now that you can only survive together?
I hope so. In any case, I want to say to all those who are watching us from the outside and who are close to us, forget the hope that there will be anything like a minority government and outside support from the AfD. That is out of the question with me. Thank you.
But he says it clearly. He tells you straight it's not going to happen with him. It's not that the whole thing is impossible, but that it's simply not possible with him anymore. That's why, Mr. Merz, it's session week. You have the opportunity in 2 days. Step up to the microphones, call a vote of confidence, and see who stands behind you. But as things stand now, you won't get the majority, period. Nor through the CDU, which is being discussed in a lot of circles. What they tend to forget a little is that many people in the Bundestag have been directly elected by the people, who, by the way, are open to passing bills with a majority that includes the AfD, while now they are demanding a minority government. That's something you categorically rule out. Then clear the way for new elections. Let the people reassess, and then let's see how far we get. That's my personal opinion. But it's also the opinion of almost 80% of Germans,
who are satisfied with their work, and now only 21% say so.
Of course, I take the discontent seriously, and we may have to explain even more where we stand.
By the way, these were exactly the kinds of statements we heard back then from Saskia Esken, Olaf Scholz, Baerbock, Habeck, and so many others. That this government went down the drain. That's what they said just before this government collapsed. It's because of reality we really have to say it. Or, as they always like to put it, because of all the global wars that have happened here. He said it exactly like that. We all still remember how Olaf Scholz stood at the front in the Bundestag and said, yes, we have to explain politics better, and at 10:13 p.m. he fired Christian Lindner, and the traffic light coalition was history. The same thing could happen to us again now, which means he still has 2 days to change agenda item 1 in the Bundestag.
And we also have to accomplish things that bear our signature, and maybe some in the union haven't done that well enough so far.
Apart from all the lies we've been told, migration has come back. Yes, the people who come here, while violent crimes keep escalating here in Germany, while on the other hand the welfare system keeps bursting at the seams. And yes, I really have to say it like this, kindergarten teachers here in Germany are being fired because they accidentally served pork sausage in a kindergarten. Yes, of course, obviously. With things like that. That's absolutely not the SPD's handwriting. It's always just against our own citizens. What has the SPD, what has the CDU actually really achieved? They just gave welfare benefits a new name. And in the end, well, Germany's pro-business party, as it once was under Helmut Kohl, has turned into a left-wing government, where we have to ask ourselves every day, what actually is right-wing conservative or centrist politics? What we actually see here every day is left-wing politics. That means so much consideration is given to minorities that the majority has to suffer because of it and is further tyrannized every day. That's how, as you just heard, 79% of Germans feel these days and clearly say this government is basically dead. So please, Mr. Merz, stand up and say the game is over. The voters should reassess who in the CDU is there to turn things around, to at least bring some stability back to this country. This stability that we urgently need. Otherwise, the economy will also go down the drain.
But Lars Klingbeil, to come back to him again, demands that higher incomes be taxed more heavily. He must know
that this can't be done with the CDU-CSU.
That's why it's perfectly fine if soon you won't be able to buy your cigarettes anymore, you can't buy lollipops or cola, Fanta, Sprite, or on the other hand, that you can't buy your cigarettes anymore. But Lars Klingbeil has to understand that there can be no increase in taxes and levies. But taxes on goods and products are perfectly fine. You can really raise it even further. And I find irony here in Germany. 23 to 29% value-added tax is actually a good rate to finally relieve the federal budget, so that they can pour even more tax money into NGOs or into climate ideological projects or wherever else they want to put them. That's the goal. That's the goal of the SPD, and the SPD won't rest until they have even more money, and the citizens here in Germany are left penniless in a planned economy. And Friedrich Merz should slowly start to realize that what we're seeing here in Germany is just the end, unless he stands up and simply says, I'm putting an end to all this nonsense here. But he doesn't want that, because the great dream of a great man, for Friedrich Merz, it has always been his dream to be Chancellor, to govern, to let this country and its people live under tyranny. Although his great role model is Adenauer, and Adenauer, well, he had it a bit easier. Everything was destroyed back then. So, Mr. Merz, do you maybe want to take a look at Russia and America at the same time now? And then you will have achieved exactly what was denied to us back then, a country in ruins. Oh, I see, we only rebuilt it back then.
Disastrous, I would say. Even the Iran issue may be connected to this US troop withdrawal that we are seeing now. You don't know, well, the US says it has other strategic reasons, but I don't think it helped.
Of course, there were other strategic reasons that he withdrew 5,000 troops shortly after the statements by Friedrich Merz. By the way, many people don't know this, but the Ramstein Air Base is the largest air base of the Americans outside of the US. I think only the Eglin Air Base is a bit bigger than the Ramstein Air Base. I personally don't know if there are any others. Of course, it's strategic to move these troops even further east. Of course, that's extremely strategic for Donald Trump. After all, he has a chancellor here in Germany whom he could call a lame duck or someone who chickens out, who is even quicker to back down than he is himself, who can't handle the political tensions we have here at all. How often does he say, yes, I'm calling Trump, Trump knows nothing about it, there's no call with Putin, and money is just being thrown at Ukraine. He should take care of the conflicts in Europe. But since he likes being the foreign policy chancellor so much, he only ever talks to his buddies, but never to the people who could actually put an end to this, for example. For example, why doesn't he finally pick up the phone and call Putin and meet with him? Oh, right, we can't do that because of Ukraine.
We have two parties from the political center coming together here. We have come together in a coalition agreement and made a commitment to get the country back on track. And I would like to stick to that commitment.
It happened after a year, Friedrich Merz, and I think those are perfect closing words. People are living more and more in fear. People are trusting this government less and less. The major car manufacturers are experiencing more and more economic losses, more and more declining profits they have to report. More and more people are becoming unemployed. The whole situation is now shifting to the point where even the arms industry can no longer take in as many people coming from the automotive industry. On the other side closer, there are people here who bring so much harm, death and hatred to these streets that we feel quite uncomfortable and continue to live in fear. For the average German citizen living here in Germany, life is hardly worth living anymore. And we see that too, and that's what we take away. By the way, I was out yesterday. That's why there was no video yesterday. Yesterday, I was at a family celebration where I felt visibly uncomfortable. There was a person there to whom I would associate with Antifa. Whether that's the case or not, I can't say for sure, but there was a person there who shouted so loudly the whole time and no one else said anything, while at times people were even afraid of their own children. Of course, the children were already grown up, and overall you could really notice cancel culture. At a family gathering where I felt so extremely uncomfortable that I was glad I could leave quite early. We then made an offer to the host. Hey, we'll just come by again in 2 or 3 weeks on a Sunday and sit down together in peace and have a talk. Instead of staying at this disaster, the best thing about this whole family gathering was, as usual, who still remembers them? The little chugging train that drove through the whole town and everyone was singing. And when the song by Rublicarel came on, then it really felt like summer again. I'll tell you how it is. There's a line in it, and it's all the SPD's fault. All these people, or half the people on the little train, looked so incredibly clueless that I said, oh, now I understand what's going on here. Hate, agitation, and division, that's what Germany can really handle well. This Chancellor's time in office needs to end, but above all, this SPD government finally needs to come to an end. They have almost always run this country into the ground single-handedly. They were involved in every government.